Once again, good evening, everyone. You're listening to Red Pill 78. As always, I am Zak the Corruption Detector, and this is another edition of Red Pill News. I hope everyone's having a lovely day, that you had a marvelous holiday, and that you're ready to get back into it. We've got several interesting stories to go over today. First of all, the not least of which is the return of our favorite Anon. We've gotten some very interesting posts today, things we've heard before, however, framed with the knowledge we have today, they are very compelling. Next, we're going to be talking about the tech tyrants in Silicon Valley. Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook is seeking to have Americans accept that the election may take weeks to decide. Why would they want to do that? Well, it makes a lot of sense when you know that they want to steal the election and take it from President Trump. Also, Paul Sperry has reported that John Brennan was running a secret Clowns in America task force out of Langley in Virginia, which was specifically set up to investigate President Trump prior to the FBI launching their own probe in July of 2016. That would be against the Clowns in America's charter. James O'Keefe and Project Veritas have reported on a new voter fraud scandal coming out of New Hampshire, and the FISA court has scolded the FBI for their widespread violations of privacy rules. Also, it looks like New York Governor Andrew Cuomo could be in the hot seat after the DOJ and the FBI raided several nursing homes in that state and others. He has until tomorrow to provide the DOJ with sufficient answers related to why he made the decisions that he did that led to the deaths of thousands of American lives as a result of the CV-19 pandemic. And we're going to finish up with a segment from a press conference he gave today where instead of taking responsibility for those actions, he tried to blame President Trump for the deaths of all CV-related patients in his state and others. Sit back, relax, grab your popcorn, and we'll be right back after a very brief word from our sponsor. Police are investigating a burglary that resulted in a victim being stabbed in Sherman, Texas. The victim is expected to survive, however, no arrests have been made. Unfortunately, this isn't unique. There has been a rise in burglaries across the country. For example, San Francisco has reported a 40.8% increase in burglaries since the shelter-in-place orders began. Don't let yourself or your family become a target. Experts agree that one of the best ways to protect your home and your family is with bright lights that cover the outside of your house to scare away burglars. My house is protected with the ultra-bright night solar light. The night solar light can be installed virtually anywhere due to the fact that they're solar powered, have zero batteries, and no wires are required. I've partnered with Night Solar Light to give my audience 52% off their own ultra-bright floodlights, plus free shipping included. Go to nightsolarlight.com or click the link in the description or pinned comment below to get yours today. And remember, when you support my sponsors, you support this channel. All right, guys, thanks for sticking around. First of all, today, let's take a look at these posts. Now, Methods and I went over them in detail on Occam's Razor today at 1:30, but post 4635, we're given a reminder of the connections between the 1933 paramilitary arm of the Communist Party in Germany and, of course, the 2017 paramilitary wing of the Democratic Party of America today. Now, this post goes through several comparisons showing the behavior of those people in 1933 against the behaviors of these same people here in 2020. And I think that you'll notice there are quite a few comparisons that can be made. We've got incidents of intimidation, incidents of voter intimidation, battles being waged in the streets for simply believing something different than what the Democratic Party wants you to believe. And if you take a look at all of these incidences together, it is pretty clear that we are dealing with the exact same group today. Now, I've talked on the channel multiple times about my theory that when World War II ended and Operation Paperclip was implemented, all of those brains from the German bad guys in World War II were brought into the United States intelligence community. And through the last decades, as they continue to rise in power and essentially take over the United States government, they became the cabal that we are fighting against today. Now, it says here in the post, was the Nazi Party ever truly destroyed or eradicated? Well, the answer is no. They were simply absorbed into the United States government and intelligence community. One line also says Soros history, and it ends by asking background of Soros. Anyone who has seen that infamous 60 Minutes documentary about George Soros knows his history. He was a Hungarian Jew during World War II, and he said that he was forced to become a Nazi to go around appropriating property from the Jews that were left in the war-torn areas, and he had absolutely no qualms about it. It's very interesting because George Soros is the money behind all of these actions that we see taking place. So I believe that George Soros took what he learned during World War II and has now exported it for use here in America in 2020. My point has always been that their ideology did not simply change because they were given American citizenship. No, they were just allowed to come here, they entered our government, and then they thrived, and they took their ideology and they implemented it into the fabric of United States society, and that's how the cabal was born. Now, continuing on, we have post 4636. They are being forced into the light for all to see. Our favorite Anon tells us to keep faith in humanity, keep faith in ourselves, and that we are the light of the world. Then in post 4637, we also have a repost of 4373. You are witnessing the greatest coordinated disinformation campaign to ever be launched against the American people. Information warfare, infiltration versus invasion, insurgency, irregular warfare, Democrat efforts to regain power. All of these are tactics which they are using today against the American people. And then we have a tweet from President Trump. And our favorite Anon says, digital soldiers fight back, loyalists, patriots, where we go one, we go all. That is us. That is our credo. And President Trump echoes exactly what our favorite Anon said back in post 4373. He said the Democrats, together with the corrupt fake news media, have launched a massive disinformation campaign, the likes of which has never been seen before. They will say anything, like their recent lies about me and the military, and hope that it sticks. But MAGA gets it. That's right. Although the fake news media would like to believe otherwise, we are smart enough to see through their tricks. And through platforms such as this, through shows such as mine, we do everything in our power to fight back against their disinformation campaign. Thank God we have each other, and thank God we have the president's back. And then finally, our favorite Anon calls us modern-day midnight riders, and there's a reason why they are fighting hard to censor and defame you. Even though they want to make up fake news about us, they want to spread rumors, and they would like to characterize us as something other than simply being patriots, it's not going to work. The election is right around the corner, and try as they might, we will be successful. Do not give up. So in a shining example of the fake news media and tech giants such as Facebook working overtime to try to sow the seeds of disinformation and steal the election, Mark Zuckerberg is on the alert, and he's screaming at the top of his lungs, telling people Americans must accept that the election may take weeks to decide, and trying to say that this is normal. Democrats and never-Trumpers are clearly planning a massive unrest following the November 3rd election. A top Democrat data and analytics firm funded by Michael Bloomberg claimed it is highly likely President Trump will win by a landslide on election night. You can take that one to the bank, but ultimately will lose in the following days after mail-in ballots continue to be counted. Hawkfish CEO Josh Mendelson called the Democrat mail-in voting fraud operation deployed to steal the election post-election day a red mirage in his interview with Axios on HBO. He said, "We are sounding an alarm and saying that this is a very real possibility, that the data is going to show on election night an incredible victory for Donald Trump. And the truth of the matter is, in fact, it will truthfully be an incredible victory. It's not just the data reporting it, it is the truth of the matter. Any ballots that come in after the fact, you can bet are going to be faked and an attempt to steal the election by Democrats." He said, "When every legitimate vote is tallied and we get to the final day, which will be someday after Election Day, it will in fact show that what happened on election night was exactly that. A mirage." "I don't think so," Mendelson said. "It looked like Donald Trump was in the lead, and he fundamentally was not when every ballot gets counted, every fake ballot. And this weekend, Facebook's Mark Zuckerberg warned Americans that the election may take weeks to decide. He also wants Americans to believe this is normal. Well, it's not, it's called stealing an election. And Facebook continues to censor conservatives as it allows far-left accounts and the liberal media to go unchecked. Now, from Summit News, Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg insists that Americans must get used to the idea that the election result may take weeks to be confirmed after voting on November 3rd. Why suddenly, after hundreds of years of successful elections in America, why will it suddenly take weeks for the election to be counted? Well, because they're going to find as many ballots as they can and mark them for Joe Biden and steal the election. One of the things that we in the media need to start doing is preparing the American people that there is nothing illegitimate about this election taking additional days or weeks to make sure all the votes are counted. He added that the company would begin a messaging campaign to convince Americans that such a scenario is normal. This right here is part of the disinformation campaign. They are trying to convince Americans that Donald Trump didn't win, even though it's already in the bag. This is the very definition of disinformation right here. Every time we've had an election, they have been able to call it in no time flat. But now this time, they want people to believe that our country is in such chaos and there are so many votes that need to be counted that it's going to take days and weeks to get it done. All that's going to do is allow them the time to fake ballots and to make as many as they need. It's going to be a situation just like Arizona, just like California in 2018. But what's different this time is that the federal government is going to be watching. They know exactly what to look for, and we have nothing to fear. Try as they might to steal this election, my friends, it will not work. Donald Trump will be president. He will receive another term, and who knows, maybe a third after that. All right, now next in what I believe to be the biggest story of the day, Paul Sperry is reporting that John Brennan, the former head of the Clowns in America, was running a secret clown task force out of Langley. That's the headquarters of the Clowns in America, which was being used to investigate Trump before the FBI probe was launched in July of 2016. Now, former Obama director of the Clowns in America, John Brennan, was interviewed for 8 hours at the end of August by U.S. Attorney John Durham at the Clowns in America headquarters. And according to Brennan's spokesperson, Nick Shapiro, he is not a subject or a target of Durham's probe into abuses by the federal government in the Russia collusion hoax investigation of the Trump campaign and President Trump. But Representative Devin Nunes, the hero who sought the truth and uncovered the coup attempt of President Trump, says that the former Clowns in America Brennan is hardly in the clear as far as the investigation into his wrongdoing goes. Brennan has already lied under oath about not including the Steele dossier into that intelligence community's assessment of Russian collusion back in 2017. And Brennan also has said publicly that all roads with Trump lead to Putin. He has continuously tried to tie Russia to President Trump. Well, on Sunday night, investigative journalist Paul Sperry tweeted out that John Brennan was in fact running a secret task force to spy on candidate Trump during the 2016 election. And journalist Adam Housley backed this up later that night. Let's go ahead and take a look at the tweets. So here is the original tweet from Paul Sperry, and it just says that investigators have learned that the Clowns in America director John Brennan was running that secret task force prior to the FBI setting up their investigation. So who are the investigators? I believe that that would be the investigators behind John Durham's investigation. The idea that John Brennan is not a subject of the investigation is laughable and assertion at best. John Brennan was one of the last people to be interviewed in Durham's investigation. I believe he was interviewed last because that way John Durham had all the information surrounding John Brennan. He knew all the answers already. He had John Brennan interviewed at Langley because it falls outside the jurisdiction of the D.C. courts, which means that it's outside the jurisdiction of the liberal D.C. judges. It's going to make it easier to bring charges against him. It's going to be easier to bring him to justice by having it placed there in Virginia. Now, Adam Housley said he'd been doing this well before Trump, as I have reported, and we have it confirming, remember, I've been saying John Brennan ran his own op and he had been doing just that. I've reported and said this for 3 years. Just keep it in mind. Now, what did John Brennan do before he was the director of the Clowns in America? Well, he was the director of the Analysis Corporation, which was that private intelligence company that was involved in the stealing of passport data of not only Barack Obama, but also Senator No Name and Hillary Clinton. I believe that that stealing of data was was directly related to the cover-up of Obama's true identity. Now, either John Brennan was his handler or John Brennan was looking to blackmail him. I think it's more likely that Brennan was the handler of Barack, and he probably provided those fake identities used by him. Remember, his social security number ties back to some guy in Connecticut who is way dead. And then you've also got his various names used throughout the history of his life across a series of continents. So probably Barack was a Clowns in America kid. He was raised in a Clowns in America family. He was used as an asset and an agent from a very young age, and John Brennan had direct connections to him for many years. Now, Brennan, running the private intelligence company, the Analysis Corporation, working with his own people at the Clowns in America, allowed him to run all kinds of secret black book ops. Now, who knew about all of that black budget operations taking place inside the American government? Well, that would be none other than General Flynn himself. That is why he has been silenced. That's why they went after him initially, and that's why the case against him is still ongoing. Has General Flynn been questioned by U.S. Attorney John Durham? Well, it's something that we're not going to find out until the investigation is made public. But as of right now, there is nothing public because that investigation is ongoing. I'm very interested to see what happens next with this story in terms of Paul Sperry and Adam Housley's reporting, but I don't doubt it for a moment. All right, next, a follow-up on Project Veritas's expose revealing voter fraud taking place in New Hampshire. Now, last week, they brought the evidence that the New Hampshire Attorney General's office knew about double voter Vincent Marzello and his fraudulent ID card in the name of Helen Ashley. He was voting as himself, and then he created a fake voter ID to vote as a female as well. Now, when taking this information to the election law unit there in New Hampshire, that is run by New Hampshire Assistant AG Nicholas Chong-Yen, they were told that Chong-Yen was unaware of a voter ID card in New Hampshire. A rather strange thing to say for someone heading up the election law unit. Now, they ended up speaking to Attorney General McDonald there in New Hampshire, who actually did confirm that there is such a thing as a voter ID in New Hampshire. He also confirmed that that office and Nicholas Chong-Yen should have known about the existence of the New Hampshire voter ID. I'm going to go ahead and leave the link to this expose in the pinned comment below so you guys can watch the video, but it's another example of rampant voter fraud taking place in the country and just another way that creative people have found to fleece the system. We've got fake voter IDs, we've got fake ballots, we've got people voting more than once, and the closer we get to the election, the more opportunities the American public are seeing for this election to be stolen. The integrity of the American election system at this point is broken, and I can only say I hope to God that the federal government is on top of it for this upcoming election, which is just over a month away. Now, with all of the trouble we've had with the FISA court and the FBI that has come out since the 2016 election, under the direction of Christopher Wray, the FBI has continued to routinely violate the protections that are meant to be in place to safeguard Americans' information. Now, Christopher Wray and his FBI continue to engage in these widespread violations of rules, which are meant to keep Americans' privacy exactly that, private. Now, in a ruling made in December, but unsealed just over the Labor Day weekend, Judge James Boasberg revealed that a July 2019 audit found 87 instances in which the FBI queried raw FISA-acquired evidence, even though agents or analysts were not reasonably likely to retrieve foreign intelligence information or evidence of a crime as required by law to get that information. In other words, they risked violating Americans' privacy without a lawful basis. There still appear to be widespread violations of the querying standard by the FBI, Boasberg said, citing examples in which NSA records were searched for unnecessary or unlawful reasons. In that 83-page ruling, which was heavily redacted, Judge Boasberg also cited concern about a group of searches involving 16,000 people rejecting the Bureau's argument that they were necessary and lawful. He said, based on the facts reported, the FBI's position that all queries for all 16,000 persons were reasonably likely to retrieve foreign intelligence information or evidence of a crime is is unsupportable. Despite the concerns, the judge nonetheless proceeded to approve the latest rules allowing the FBI to continue to conduct such searches of data gathered by the National Security Agency or under the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. After considering the matters discussed above and other incidents reported by the government and assessing the overall state of implementation of the current targeting, querying, and minimization procedures, the court finds that the proposed procedures, as reasonably expected to be implemented, comply with applicable statutory and Fourth Amendment requirements. It will, however, continue to monitor the government's implementation of the procedures, especially regarding U.S. person inquiries. So basically, the FBI continuing to violate the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution, the data of Americans and our privacy still being violated, and the judge stating that as long as they do it correctly, it'll be okay. But the problem is they're not doing it correctly. Now, the part that's really difficult is that using FISA, I'm certain that some bad guys have been caught. However, it's also become painfully obvious that the privacy of Americans have also been egregiously violated. Our data is at the whim of the intelligence agencies, and they can rifle through it anytime they want. We know it's not only being used for the investigation of crimes. In fact, it's being used in situations like we've seen play out ever since the 2016 election. People's data is at risk, and agencies like the FBI are using this as their own personal search engine. Who knows what data is being looked at, whose privacy is being violated, or what the data is going to be used for once it gets into the hands of less scrupulous agents. People like Kevin Kleinsmith, Peter Strzok, or even Lisa Page. What are we going to do? The only thing we can do is hope that the government makes the right decision. However, something tells me that as long as they have the power, they will never relinquish it. All right, finally, last week, several nursing homes in multiple Democrat-run states were raided by the DOJ and the FBI. One such state which hosted a major raid was the state of New York, and New York Governor Cuomo has until Wednesday, tomorrow, to provide the DOJ the data and answers they are seeking related to the actions he took that led to thousands of CV-19 deaths. But the DOJ may be asking the wrong questions. Now, New York Governor Andrew Cuomo and his Health Commissioner Howard Zucker are facing mounting, angry, and even bipartisan calls for a federal investigation into their March 25th CV-19 edict, in which recovering CV-19 hospital patients were transferred into New York State's nursing homes, something that baffled many at the time. This same policy required that hospital patients remain untested before transfer into one of Zucker's DOH-licensed nursing homes. This on screen right now is a copy of that edict from the Department of Health showing Andrew Cuomo, Howard Zucker, and Sally Dresnan, who was the executive deputy commissioner. Now, after a prolonged period of outrage and public pressure, the NYS DOH was finally forced to admit it had actually implemented this inconceivable action. We now know from that agency itself that Zucker allowed 6,326 untested recovering CV-19 patients to be moved into New York's nursing homes for 46 consecutive days. That's an average of 137 patients per day. Well, what do you think happened? This is utterly insane, and many of the grieving families say criminal public policy likely resulted in the deaths of thousands of New York's frail and disabled senior citizen nursing home residents. We all know that the nursing homes were the apparent epicenter of this disease in each of these states. Now, New York's numbers represent a large undercount due to the DOH leaving out the number of nursing home residents who later died in the hospital. The AP estimates that at least 11,000 nursing home residents have actually died in New York State. President Trump, who is of course a former New Yorker, is now even aware of Cuomo's attempts to cover up the true number of senior citizen deaths in New York State, which his CV-19 policies have clearly caused. The president had this to tweet out to Andrew Cuomo. Let's take a look. On September 3rd, President Trump called out Governor Andrew Cuomo, saying Andrew Cuomo of New York has the worst record on death and China virus. 11,000 people alone died in nursing homes because of his incompetence. That is a 100% factually provable statement. Now, at the August 3rd hearings about this March 25th edict and nursing home facilities conducted by the Democrat-controlled New York State legislature, Health Commissioner Zucker testified about what happened. Legislators were frustrated and angry that he absolutely refused to provide the number of CV-19 nursing home residents who subsequently died in a New York hospital. What was the excuse? Well, he needed more time to gather absolutely accurate information. Yet until this date, more than 1 month later, Zucker has still not produced this data. At the end of this hearing, Senator Thomas O'Mara, representing rural Center New York and the ranking member of the Senate's Investigations and Government Operations Committee, blasted the testimony of Commissioner Zucker. O'Mara stated the man showed up ill-prepared with an implausible response that they don't have any figures, which has probably been the biggest topic of concern that he's been in the media and the public arena surrounding the governor's March 24th order that nursing homes accept CV-19 patients. Considering how much attention has been paid to this pandemic, considering the very close attention that has been brought to the number of deaths and the manner of deaths, I find it very implausible that this gentleman would not have had the specific information needed on the day he came to testify. Now, O'Mara, like Betsy McConaughey, pointed out the fact that a cover-up by this administration, stating the testimony from the health commissioner Howard Zucker consisted of little more than his own self-serving CYA PowerPoint presentation. At hearings convened 2 weeks later on August 17th, this time by the Republican Minority Conference of the NYS legislature and focusing on families' testimony, Senator O'Mara doggedly pursued this same topic and finally got an answer from a forthright county official. With New York State having 62 counties, it would be a simple matter to ask each county public health director to provide the data for that county. Why then is Commissioner Zucker, with his deceptive, self-serving CYA answers, refusing to give this information to the public? Well, I think it's probably pretty self-explanatory. A well-oiled cover-up strategy of Cuomo's has been to hide, withhold, or delay information, such as that selective March 25th edict, his virtually identical April 7th and April 10th edicts, or the nursing home to hospital death toll. Another has been to repeatedly blame anybody and everybody else for his administration's actions, and we've all been stunned as Cuomo kept coming up with yet another person or entity to foist his failures upon, each attack more outrageous than the last. Now I want to show you the press conference that Cuomo held today, probably in light of the fact that this information is now due to the DOJ, and you won't believe who he decided to blame this time.
Donald Trump caused the COVID outbreak in New York. Donald Trump caused the COVID outbreak in New York. That is a fact. It's a fact that he admitted, and the CDC admitted, and Fauci admitted. The China virus, the China virus, the China virus. It was not the China virus. It was the European virus that came to New York. They missed it. They missed it. The China virus went to Europe. It got on a plane, it went to Europe. They never even thought of the possibility. And then 3 million Europeans got on the plane and came to New York. And they brought the virus. January, they brought the virus. February, they brought the virus. March, they brought the virus. And in mid-March, the federal government does a travel ban from Europe. Mid-March. Too little, too late, Mr. President. He caused the COVID outbreak in New York. Donald Trump and his incompetent CDC and his incompetent NIH and his incompetent Department of Homeland Security.
Methinks the lady doth protest too much. Andrew Cuomo knows that each and every death there in the state of New York is not on Donald Trump's hands. The fact that he's blaming Donald Trump is just another example of projection and deflection. Andrew Cuomo has to wake up every morning and look at himself in the mirror. This is not the fault of President Trump. This is not the fault of anyone except for the Democrats who wanted to leave all borders open. He calls it the China virus because it originated in China. The virus that may have come over from Europe is still the China virus, and Governor Cuomo will bend over backwards to do anything except lay the blame at the feet of those who should be blamed. That would be China, number one, and when it comes to the deaths of New York nursing home residents, that would be Andrew Cuomo, number two. Now, ever the hardcore, selfish, power-hungry political animal, Governor Cuomo, along with Health Commissioner Zucker, clearly does not care at all about the thousands of families left in mourning. They are ignoring the families who still have loved ones in these nursing homes, many who haven't been allowed to see their family members since Zucker's nursing home lockdown on March 15th. The 4 Democrat governors have until Wednesday to respond to the DOJ's letter, and given that the DOJ, citing the Civil Rights of Institutionalized Persons Act, is restricting the data it has requested to publicly owned nursing homes only, and in New York State that represents only 30 homes, the remaining 592 being privately owned, corporate, for-profit, and nonprofit operations, its data demand is ignoring the majority of seniors who became infected and died. Now, this federal probe, if unamended, will do almost nothing towards uncovering and documenting the elder abuses, human rights violations, and the effect of these governors' edicts, which, like Cuomo's March 25th policy, seemed to all result in mass disabled and frail elderly casualties within each of these 4 states' nursing homes' congregate care systems. Cuomo and Michigan's Governor Gretchen Whitmer have already jointly dismissed this DOJ out of hand as being nothing more than a political move by the Republicans, calling it a nakedly partisan deflection. We'll see what happens next. But the families of the elderly who died in these nursing homes as a result of these ridiculously idiotic edicts, they deserve answers, and they deserve an apology from the people who put these edicts into place. Putting sick people in the same place as the most at-risk people in our population are clearly the ones we need to blame. Governor Whitmer, Governor Cuomo, and all the other Democrat governors who shoved sick CV-19 patients into nursing homes with already frail elderly patients with compromised immune systems are the only ones we should be blaming, not President Trump. Well, you can't forget China. All right, guys, that's all I have for you today. I want to thank everyone for joining me. As always, this has been Red Pill 78. I am Zak, the Corruption Detector, and this was another edition of Red Pill News. I hope everyone has a lovely day. Good luck, and God bless. Hey guys, one more thing. I just want to thank everyone for watching today. If you have not subscribed yet, I urge you to please consider subscribing. There will be a couple of videos that pop up if you want to continue to watch. There's also some ways in the description of this video that you can follow me on other platforms. Please consider doing that as well. And if you want to support the program directly, there are means to do that below as well. Thank you all for your support over the last couple of years. Consider liking and sharing this video and help me get the real news to people who don't yet know they've been lied to.